To make sure you're in the right room, we are at Go Big or Go Home, how to leverage multi-unit development. Real quick before we do introductions too, I think the most important word in the title is leverage, right? It's just not do we do multi-unit, do we only do single unit? It's if you choose to do multi-unit, how do you leverage it for your brand success, right? Where are the pros? What's the price point? What's the incentive for people to grow? Things of that nature. So let's keep that in mind as we get into it. Looks like we're missing Wyatt, so we'll give him a minute or two to see if he shows up. Otherwise, we'll just quickly do some introductions and then we'll just get into it. Steve, do you want to start?
Sure, absolutely.
There's the mic right here. Here you go. Thank you. JD, why don't you and Eric share that one?
There you go. So first of all, thanks everybody for being here, and it's my thrill. It's only my 9th year at Springboard, so it's a little new to me. But hopefully all you guys will have gotten what you should, and hats off to the Fishmans and to the Brad and everybody in the Fisher Zucker group and Sherry and everybody that puts this together for so many years. They deserve lots of congrats here. So I am Stephen Gardner, founder of QSR Franchise Development Group and Fitwell Advisors. 30 plus years in consulting, franchise sales, development, brokerage, and commercial real estate. Represented over 70 brands, emerging brands, and some a little more developed nationally, regionally, and internationally. As outsourced director of franchise development and sometimes managing the real estate. The team specialties for my group are development for emerging brands, lead gen marketing, which we get involved with multi-unit area development, sales, and transactions in that quick service, restaurant, health, wellness, and fitness space. And we focus on consulting and advising our clients more than the brokerage side, although we do both, I think, well for measured strategic development and long-term growth, and taking brands typically from inception to 30 units and then beyond.
Great. JD?
JD Bush. Been in franchising 25 plus years where I start. I was 12 when I started, by the way. Retail services, whole time I've done a couple restaurants, but mainly retail services, fitness, beauty, health and beauty brands. Been a franchisee, multi-unit franchisee, multi-brand, multi-unit franchisee, and franchisor. So again, glad to be here. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I haven't been in as long as JD, 20 years in. My name's Eric Van Horn. I've been a franchisee, multi-unit, multi-brand. What else did we miss with that? Multi-unit, multi-brand, multiple states. Multiple states. A lot of what I've done is semi-absentee, and I've done it a lot through partnerships. Been a franchisor, consultant / broker, and right now I'm with Front Street Equity Partners with my partner Jeff Herr. And we look for brands that we can have some meaningful impact through strategic advisory services, and then bring some franchise sales component to it as well, possibly some capital. So that's what we do at Front Street Equity, and I'm excited to be here. I also have a podcast some of you might be listening to called Franchise Secrets, and we got a very active Facebook group as well called Franchise Secrets Facebook group.
Yeah, I would highly recommend you join Eric's group. Please feel free to dive into your phone and do it right now. You're not going to insult any of us. So Franchise Secrets on the Facebook group. I'm Ryan Zink. I've been in franchising also 20 years. Started as a franchisee, then became a franchisor of Complete Nutrition. We grew that to 200 locations before we sold it. And then I co-founded Franchise Fastlane, a franchise sales organization. We work with about 20 brands, driving growth for them. We award about 1,600 franchise locations a year through Fastlane, and recently we partnered with Southfield Capital. They're a private equity group looking to dive into the franchise space, and so I started a referral team. My team's right here, Franchise Sidekick, where we help people find the right franchise for them to join. All right, with that, again, we're talking multi-unit. So real quick before we get into it, just because everybody likes to understand who's in the audience before we get into answering things. How many of you, if you're a franchisor, how many of you do multi-unit development now? So 7 or 8, okay. Are there any of you that are franchisors in here that only do single unit development? None, okay. So it looks like everybody in here, if you're a ZOR, you are doing both single and multi, so that's good for us to know as we think about these questions. All right, we're gonna start. I already have a question, but before we start, I just wanted to do a quick little fire round here. We're just gonna go through one time what is the best pro? If you had to think about the pros and the cons, what is the best pro of multi-unit development? Eric, we'll go reverse. Do you want to start?
All right, the best pro is once you get one franchisee and you train them, you get them to the point where they're open, they're successful. You have to help them on that second unit, but once they've opened up that second unit, the third unit, fourth unit, fifth unit, sixth unit, 12th unit is not a lot of work for the franchisor. So franchisor does a lot of lifting on the front end. On the back end, that franchisee at some point probably is better at it than the franchisor. And then you can leverage that person to help other franchisees grow.
JD?
My pro for multi-unit franchising is the biggest thing is because I have developed before with 40 franchisees and 40 locations. When you do multi-unit, say you do 3-pack and you have 30 locations, you have 10 franchisees. So you have less people to support, you can support them better, and obviously have a lot smaller team. It's a lot easier to develop 100 franchisees with 1,000 locations than it is 1,000 locations and 1,000 franchisees. So the biggest thing is pushing multi-unit growth. Obviously makes it easier and better and smarter in the way of developing your team and people, and then the amount of people you need to support 1,000 franchisees over 100 franchisees.
Great. So we agree with all of that. I would say also faster growth with more experienced and better capitalized partners is going to accelerate the growth of the company.
We're all saying the same thing. I mean, the biggest pro of multi-unit development is fewer franchisees that if they're operating well, you have fewer relationships and you know, the Panera Bread model, all those locations and they have fewer than 100 franchisees, right? It's leveraging your best partnerships. Now, if I had to say a second one, I think Steve maybe mentioned to it, it's capital, right? If you do it well, you do get more money when you do a multi-unit development up front, which allows you to invest into more support services and things like that, of course. I'm going to go right into the cons, and I'm going to start just because it's a tail on what I just said. The con of that is you don't want to sign multi-unit franchisees only for the money, because what will happen is if they're not the right partners and you have them on a development schedule, there's a very high likelihood that they will not meet the development schedule. And then you're sitting there looking at a franchisee with the decision of either allowing them to extend or taking territory back, which may give you more inventory to sell, but is not a great thing for your franchise relationships. But let's go the opposite way. Steve, you want to start with the con?
So there are a number of cons, but I guess if you if it's the wrong brand partner, the opposite will be the effect. You'll be expanding with partners that don't fit the system, and it's really important to choose the right brand partners at the end of the day, because if you don't, especially early on, it's going to haunt you for a long time.
Great, JD.
So obviously, I took everything. I actually do have another con. The biggest thing is when you're selling multi-unit, you want to make sure, and the biggest thing I've done and made the same mistake, because I made every mistake possible, trying not to make the same one twice, but selling a multi-unit because they have the cash up front, but not the cash to develop all of them up front. So even though you're not requiring them that they open all their franchises all at one time, if they don't have the capital up front to open 3, I would not sell to them, because that means that they're making their money back on their first location, and 99% of the time they never meet the development schedule because they have to make money back from their first location before they can do their second. And the second part of that is being number one thing in the entire world is they want X location. It's not available at that time. They open their next location and that comes available, and now they don't have the capital to do it. So I can get into a whole nother storyline with that and how I develop or how I hold or don't hold locations. But if you're selling a 3-pack, make sure that they have the money and the withal to be able to do all 3 up front.
All right, so here's a con. If you have somebody that wants multi-unit and they have the capital, they have everything, they are going to be a great multi-unit owner, but they want to cherry pick the top 3 locations in the market. And it's really tempting to do that, and that will usually come back to bite you. You don't want to let them cherry pick. So that's my con.
So I mean, again, cons are wrong partner. You're stuck with them in multi-units. They're undercapitalized. They're trying to leverage profits off the first to move into the next, and then they're cherry picking the best markets, and so you don't have a good market that you can combine with maybe a B market to a future franchisee. Yes. Before you answer, let me just repeat the question so everybody can hear it. The question was, if you award multi-unit, do you also require them to have the operating team in place before you award that? So when do you want to take that?
Start, because I've made these same mistakes as well, because I've had a lot of multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees.
We also miss that we're area developers, and that's something that's unique out there. So
we get into that too. But yes, for answering your question on.
Do you have the operating team in place before you award?
Very, very important is especially like I said when I was going with this was multi-unit, multi-brand, is that we do require the fact that they have a dedicated person to that brand in operations. So if the franchisee is not the operating partner, then we require that they have a dedicated operating partner before we launch or have in place before we'd ever sell them a multi-unit deal.
but in terms of a team, I don't know that I've seen, unless they come with experience like JD or myself or some others, if they don't have an operation team already, most of the time they're going to get awarded multi-unit because like most of them are not going to have a team already. But that operating partner is key, especially in this world of semi-absentee ownership right now. A lot of people are hearing out there that means you don't have to be involved in the business. When look at your own business, why was it successful? Is because somebody was involved with it. So you want one person to be that operating partner.
Great. Actually, if you don't mind, I want to do a little audience participation again. Those of you that said you were doing multi-unit development, do any of you have a story of a multi-unit franchisee right now that is either out of compliance, not meeting their schedule? Anybody that you do? Would you mind sharing with us your story? What's your brand? Do you mind saying what your brand is? Seven Brothers Burgers. Sure, if you don't mind.
You know, I was going to be spotlighted. But no, yeah, we're kind of in the baby stages of the whole franchising piece of this thing. Started franchising about 1.5 years ago. A guy approached us with like this massive number, like, hey, we want 50 stores. We start out with 5 units. We're like, okay, we'll give you 5. And not knowing any better, we didn't put any terms in place as far as when those need to be completed. And so, yeah, he hasn't opened up any. It's been about almost 2 years now.
Got it.
Since he signed on.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's been kind of a tough situation as far as the conversation we've been having to have with him as far as how he's going to develop this. Come to find out, he had the money up front, but didn't have any money to support 5 stores opening.
A clarifying question there. Did he pay the franchise fee for all 5?
Yeah, so he paid the franchise fee, and as we kind of dug deeper into it, he didn't have the financial wherewithal to kind of support the 5 stores he was trying to open.
Yeah.
So now he's kind of in the conversation of trying to find funding, kind of helping him with that piece a little bit. But yeah, it's been a struggle to say the least.
Well, thanks for sharing,
Yeah.
and just know that you're not alone. And are you
The
going
question
to
is,
make
does he have a locked-in territory? Is he?
We do have a clarifying question. Go ahead.
For you or I guess everybody in the panel. So now you said he was trying to gather the funding, right? So it's like
Quit pushing.
funding to SBA you're looking for, or is it funding to what is their source?
So in this specific situation, he's now trying to partner up with a larger equity brand that does come in and buy smaller emerging brands. And so now it's been kind of a mess because now we're in discussion with this new, bigger brand that's kind of consuming him, wanting to use his location that he's already purchased from us, and kind of launch their whole thing into our brand. And so now it's even gotten even messier to where they want to jump on our side of the corporate side and asking for equity on our piece because they're going to be using
Yeah.
their.
All right. Perfect. So real quick, we're going to answer this, and I just want to say, Seek, thank you for bringing that up because that is a very common early mistake. So for the rest of you that are considering it, this is something to try to avoid if you can. But go ahead, Steve.
So I would say, number one, I'm not sure what attorney you used. You don't have to announce it here. But I would say that if you have he's got forever to develop these units, that's just a basic tragic mistake. And I can't imagine that you can't negotiate or terminate in some way. And that's what I would do if I were you.
So there was a term of 2 years, and so we did terminate the original contract. But yeah.
So you did. You terminated the 5-unit deal.
So we terminated, so it's even messier.
That's okay. Just a high level. There was kind of a.
Locked up the Utah State.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I didn't mean to get off track this much. Basically, it's okay, thank you. What we were saying is, was there a multi-unit mistake made at an early stage for a franchisor? And Zeke had mentioned how they awarded 5 units without a timeline for somebody, and they didn't open any. So just real quick, let's stay with the panel for now. Eric or JD, any other comments on what you think Zeke should do?
The mess gets messier, and it gets messier and messier. That's my big takeaway.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Exactly the same. I don't know what the details are. If you can eliminate the contract, I would encourage you to do that. Yeah, that's not going to get any better. For those of you that came in a little bit late, we're going to get into structure here on multi-unit, but I offered my cell phone out. So if any of you want to text a question, I know I already have a couple. We'll get to them, but feel free to text a question to 402-515-1206. Again, 402-515-1206. Let's talk structure just for a minute, and then we'll get into any questions that come through. So, multi-unit development has a lot of ways that you can structure it. Zeke just gave a great example, right? What timeline do you give? How much is it? What requirements do we have to have before somebody moves into multi-unit development? So, guys, that's the question I'm going to ask you here is, how do you suggest people structure multi-unit development deals? Anybody?
My most aggressive one was this was as a franchisee. So as a franchisee with Sola Salon Studios, I'm giving you perspective of how a franchisee will look at it and then how a franchisor looks at it. So as a franchisee, I was going in, I needed to bring in 3 other partners. So there's 4 of us in total, each 25%. We decided to take the whole Orange County market to lock it up for 5 years. We had 12 units that we were able to lock up, and then we knew at that point they would open it up and we'd have to buy more. So we bought 12 at one time. My mentality is if it goes well, we'll open up 3. If it goes bad, we will stop. We'll open up 12 if it goes well. If it doesn't go very well, we'll stop at 3 and just eat the rest. So lesson is understand what their real plan is. I probably wouldn't have told them that exactly, but if you can understand what the franchisee's plan is, like best, worst, average case of how it goes, then you'll start to probably be able to help them better and avoid some mistakes. So we bought 12 of them, and it went really well, so we ended up with 12. We developed them very aggressively in a 5-year period and then had an 8-figure exit on that particular business. Thing is, they were starting to bring pressure at that time for us to develop a lot more right after that. So we just had open communication with the franchisor. They wanted to put in 24 to 36 locations in the Orange County market. We thought, 18 was better for us as a franchisee. So franchisor always see things differently. But we just had that open communication. We're like, okay, it's time for us to sell. We sold out to private equity. Everyone was happy. And then they never developed as many as they said they were going to. So keep, with your franchisee, just understand what their plan is for multi-unit development and help them achieve that. And if it ever gets to the point where they're not going to be able to work with them, like we would have sold. If it didn't work out, we would have sold back to the corporate office if we needed to. So keep open line of communication, understand their objectives.
JD or Steve, go ahead.
I would just say from the franchisor side as well too is that it has to be priced right, and I think that you have to provide reasonable discounts. I'm in favor of 3 packs typically because it's not too many to kill your system, and they have a chance to prove themselves. So if you give them significant discount from the first to the second and the third, and then maybe beyond with some right of first refusals, you're not giving away the planet. You get to, it's kind of a marriage. You get to know each other for a couple of years, and hopefully if it works, you continue to move it forward. But each side has an opportunity, and each side has kind of an exit strategy if it doesn't work.
So this has been a big fight with lawyers and attorneys. I'm from Austin, Texas. Became good friends with Edward and them from Sports Clips. I actually learned quite a bit from them and their development. I take development a little differently. Yes, we have a schedule. Especially in retail services, it doesn't matter if it's at COVID, we can't get your permits done for 3 months longer than what it normally takes. We can't get materials. Millwork takes now, 4 to 6 months to get millwork where it used to take, 2 months. So there's a lot of issues, obviously, with development and flexibility that I've never had before because of time frames that it takes now. I mean, before where we used to be able to get stores open extremely easy within 6 months, could take 8 months to a year, even when they're get a lease right away or whatever it might be. I mean, prime example, I had one lease personally that took me 6 months. And then actually, after I got permits, which took 6 months, it took me 3 months to get the actual CO because of, well, actually it was a fire system problem. But anyways, it just, those things happen. So it took me a year to open one of my own personal stores where I was dying to try to get it open. So development schedule is different, not to get way off topic here, but something I learned from Sports Clips. Lane and I got in some arguments to fight over it that I could never sell it this way. But obviously one of the things I do too is I don't sell rights to an actual particular street location. If they buy a 3-pack, technically per franchise agreement, they have a license to open anywhere in the United States, but we tell them you have Houston, Texas to open those 3 locations. We have it as where you have not a written first rights, but you buy 3 locations. Yes, you can tell me what area or what locations you want. But you find a location that comes available, you can just open a store, but say that a location we wanted comes available. We can say, Eric, you have first right, you bought the first 3 locations, you can open that store right now, and or our second multi-unit guy, he has available to get if you pass on it. So with development, it's actually increased the timelines for current franchisees because now they know they're going to lose it. They don't have that area tied up or that particular location. Now, I know with emerging brands, the big thing is when you're going through, it's how to speak through that, how to talk it, and how to sell that process. But that's worked extremely well with now developing markets very quickly because somebody that sells a 3-pack that might not build out or do because like, oh, I already have that location tied up, I can open it whenever I want. Now when you go to somebody else, franchisee number 2 and go, this is available, who wants it, then they usually are more likely to develop faster. So I have, a lot more multi-unit franchisees opening and developing faster because they don't have that locked up territory and somebody else could take it when they really want it.
So that really incentivizes openings. So the good location comes open, like they're fighting to open it versus trying to delay things as a franchisee. They have to give up their position, and it's a bit more of a challenge to sell. You have to know how to sell it. European Wax does it this way, I believe. That's where I first learned it. All right. Well, they probably did it from learned it there. But we just talked about this in the franchisor mastermind that I have, and it's a really effective way to get locations open if that's your goal. Harder to sell, so do some research. Reach out to JD or somebody to understand exactly how to set that up. That territory. It's basically territory. How do you set up your territory for a multi-unit? And that's probably a much bigger discussion.
Yeah, there's JD, there's a follow-up question I want to ask all of you guys. So there's something I want to add on structure, but before I do, because it's relevant to what you're saying, 3 of our 4 questions that have come in are around timeline. So you had just mentioned, it's harder to get materials now, it's harder to maybe get leases, but they want to structure a timeline around a 3-pack or a 5-pack, or one person even said a 10-pack. So what would your philosophies be on timing to open?
So I had that goes back to my 12-pack with Sola, and that was a 7,000 square foot build out, and so it wasn't small. I knew we had to develop 12 in 5 years, and that was it. And so my mentality as a franchisee was whatever we need to do to get these things open and to stay on time, and we were on time every bit of the way. So just think about that. Like remember that 12 units. 10 to 12 units in 5 years. People are doing that. So a 3-pack, why do they need 3 years to do a 3-pack?
So I would answer that one. If it's in the restaurant world, you may very well need 3 years to do 3 units. That I think there's just a difference here between service and QSR and restaurant space, because restaurants take longer to build, they take longer to develop, they take longer to find. Right, the leases take longer, everything takes longer, and then with the equipment delays and everything else, I think 3 units in 3 years, if you can do them in 2.5, works all day long.
Dude, I love it. Context matters with this because it's easy for me to come up here and say 7,000 square feet, but it's not a restaurant. I'm not a restaurant guy. So all of the, with everything, you might be hearing something, but context does matter. Like what if it's a service brand, if it's restaurant, QSR, or just a gym.
So this is the prime example too. Multi-unit is great. So the big pro is that you have less franchisees You have, obviously, the biggest thing is having your top operators already know how to operate. They're going to be more successful and faster to profitability in their second. That's the whole idea behind it. The reverse of that is the slow development. So if you went and sold 30 locations tomorrow, you have 30 locations. Your money is made on royalties and the success of franchisees, and that's why there's a lot of fast lanes and all that. Your money and your profit center should not be on franchise sales. It's getting stores open as fast as possible. So the faster that they open. So again, development schedules. That's also why I changed the philosophy with they have 3 licenses, technically per the whole U.S., but we tell them it's dedicated for Houston, because then we don't stop or do the development. Another bad thing, which hopefully Lane's not in here because he hates this as well. So any attorneys here, so you're going to love me. It's a big fight for everybody. I also don't terminate licenses. They have the right to open a license if they choose, because the biggest thing I hated is people don't meet their development schedule. That is like with social media and everything else. Again, this is a mindset. I'm a big cultural guy. Is that when you terminate any franchisee, it never goes well, and they talk bad and validate or whatever it might be. So I just chose that where if they don't develop or they don't choose to move on that development, I don't terminate. They have a license. But if the market sells out, they have a license, and I know lawyers and all that, because now you have a liability on your FDD or whatever it might be. But for me, it was, you have a license, you paid for it. If you decide to open 10 years from now because now you're successful and work through whatever you did, then great. You still have a license to do down the road.
But just for context, the way you structured your territories, you're able to do that. You don't have, they're not squatting on territories, they're not holding you hostage. So that's a key differentiation there.
I would just add one last thing on the franchisor side. You have a lot of franchisors you may or may not know, we all know them, that have had incredible success selling territories and selling multi-units and selling area reps. So now you have a situation where you might have an emerging brand or a little beyond that that's now sold 8 territories and 70 units, but they can't get them open. And so they're sitting there with units that they've got lots of cash flow, they have no units open, nothing to validate. That is a dead end at the end of the day.
So I think something Eric said is so important. You have to look at your own system because context matters, right? JD, it all works together, right? How much money do you want somebody to have available before you award a certain number of units? What do you expect it to be for break even, right? If your break even is 18 months, are you going to require them to open a second store within 12? Maybe, but just know now that owner may be taking their eye off the ball before unit 1 is profitable in order to start developing number 2. That's fine if they have the money. If they don't, that's a problem, right? So you really just need to make it all kind of work together synergistically as you think about your schedule. I also want to flip to the other side. I don't know if there's service franchisors in here, but you really want to think about if you award multi-unit, do they have the ability to do business in all of those right away? Let's take a painting franchise, right? If you sell them 3 units, each unit is 200,000 people, let's say. So they have 600,000. Are you going to allow them to do business in all of that before they hit a certain minimum in one of the territories? Because they might be stretched a little bit thin now with that large territory. And is there going to be a time frame or a sales number that you're going to require them to hire more people, have more equipment, or if you're just requiring a single truck and a paintbrush, is that okay for the full 600,000 for the rest of that franchise agreement? Or are they going to need to scale up because this is how you make your money? You need them to maximize that territory. Otherwise, somebody else could have came in there and developed it at a greater pace for you to create royalties. One last thing on that too, a mistake I see all the time is a lawyer will recommend you put minimum sales in. So you need to do X number of sales to keep that territory. Well, what is your course of action if somebody doesn't hit it? You got to sue them. You got to kick them out, right? And to JD's point earlier, do you want to be suing or kicking franchisees out? That's bad for everybody. Well, what if instead of minimum sales, you said, I want minimum sales to be 500 grand. My royalty is 10%. So I'm just going to say you have to pay me a minimum royalty. Now you don't have to sue them for not hitting sales. Instead, you say, you owe me 50,000 in royalties. This year you've paid me 42. Here's an $8,000 bill. If you're going to continue to operate. It's much easier that way when you already have those terms defined as opposed to having some judge step in and decide who's right.
One quick thing on structure, Ryan, if I could. Talking about territories, the way he does it, I love it. most of you are probably doing giving defined territories, and your territories are probably too big. So you probably have one person in a territory when you should probably have that should be actually 3 different territories. So that they should be a multi-unit franchisee, but they're sitting on one massive territory, and that's a mistake that most emerging brands make.
Yeah, that's a great point overall. So that's the suggestion there would be when you start out, you should really work with some real estate experts and really plan out your target market so you know exactly how many units, give or take, can fit in that market based on demographic, psychographic, population, whatever it is, competitive analysis, so that you don't lose money at the end of the day. Because when you start giving up areas and you don't know how many units those areas could actually support, you're taking a lot of money off the table.
Great. Let's move on to a question. So this is Bob from Central Bark. Bob, thanks for asking. Bob's question is, what tips and tricks, key learnings on lead generation tactics to find quality leads for 3-packs? So if you're a franchisor, you want to find those that can afford and have the ability to open 3-packs. How do you go about it?
Well, I mean, it's like Cal getting Eric and everybody else. I mean, my tactic has always been going and finding multi-unit. So I have no problem multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees. So with a previous brand, obviously our main goal and focus was finding and communicating, because one thing is multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees are usually good friends with other multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees, and it's like setting those sparks. So when you get the right people, and again, I sold franchises and mom and pops and everything else. It makes me feel good and feel great to get people in business for themselves. Those are also the ones that are usually harder and more work to be able to get them and train them and teach them how to multi-unit and multi-brand, properly. But again, my philosophy is find and go after. There's obviously lead gen stuff. LinkedIn used to be great for me. It's not so good for anybody because everybody gets hit. I think I get like 100, 200 freaking requests every day. But, finding and trying to reach out and getting with a brand, one thing is FDDs, believe it or not, is great. You actually can go find FDDs. It doesn't matter if it's Orange Theory, Massage Envy, whoever, that you feel it could be a good partner for you. You can get FDDs and start finding all the multi-unit guys and just start calling. I mean, there's no really excuse with being able to find leads or attract people. If there's a like-minded business, you can go get FDDs anywhere, and there's a list of all the multi-unit franchisees in there, and you can just start dialing. So I've done that.
Yeah, you have done it. I've done that. That's a no-brainer thing to do. Some other kind of softer approaches, just talk about multi-unit. When you're on social media, talk about multi-unit. When your franchisees you have a franchisee that buys multi-unit, announce that. Talk about multi-unit ownership. Talk about that from the beginning of the process, even maybe in their intake form. Are you looking at a single unit, multi-unit, and if you just in your copy out there online or on your website or something, just copy, meaning the words that are on your website. Have a good copywriter do some of that for you. So you talk about attracting, you put that copy out there and you will attract that type of person. So the more that you talk about it, you're going to attract that type of person.
I would say you're at it here too. The events like this, there are lots of industry events, multi-unit conferences, emerging brand conferences, seminars. The best way to do it is organically with PR. I mean, multi-unit guys, the bigger players, they're hard to approach. Often they're going to find you. You could look for them, but unless they're looking for you, it's challenging to get their attention. So I think you've got to build that brand and that system to be attractive enough and develop enough units. The biggest comment I ever hear at a multi-unit conference for restaurants is, this brand looks great, the food looks great, everything's great. Come back to me when you have 25 units open. They don't want to really talk to you before that, often because they don't need to, right? They're successful multi-unit guys. They've made their money. They're not going to take the risk often unless the brand is well validated and well supported.
My rebuttal to that is, because I've just had that happen with somebody that, is mom and pop getting into it, but I just tell them that's great, you can wait, but I already have sold that market by then. So I always let them know that, obviously we're looking to expand and grow very rapidly. And so that's just a term I always go right back if somebody does that, as being, that's great. You can take time. We'd love to have you today, but we'll be sold out by the time that, we have 25 locations.
Two things I'll add. I'll come to you here in just a minute. Two things I'll add. One, know the avatar and know how you want to speak to them. At Franchise Sidekick, we call this type of lead Portfolio Pete, right? Somebody that's looking to build, already has a portfolio and is looking to go big within a system. And how we speak to him or her is much different than how we speak to somebody that's buying a first-time franchise. We target them in social media. We target them in certain areas, larger minimum net worth requirements. If you're buying leads from portals, things of that nature. Also, we haven't brought it up yet, but inherently it's built into the broker systems. Like if you are working with brokers, they normally will award 2+ locations per franchisee, and they get paid a little more commission on that, so they're incented to do it. So if you're looking for 3-packs, there's a way to do it through there as well. Yeah, go ahead.
In my experience, those bigger, already multi-unit guys have more employees than my corporate team does currently. So they're trying to bully us into making changes or do things that are not comfortable. So how do you have a good relationship with that person and yet keep them in check to not come in and try to change your rate?
So he was the bully. So yeah, this will be good.
Just because I kicked the franchisor out doesn't mean I'm a bully. No, I mean, it's just the same thing with anything. It's really understanding who your partners are and who you want to go with. There are some really great multi-unit guys that they have to believe in your vision and the direction you go, but you also have to know what you're doing and confident with your support and getting them to profitability. Ultimately, if you can make them profitable in what you're doing, but you have to be able to say, too, this isn't where we're going with the brand. You always take feedback. The biggest thing and learning thing is, too, is how you get franchisees to communicate to you. I mean, I've had them go through and say, hey, I want to do teeth whitening and do all these other things that has nothing to do with our brands. You have to be able to, say, that's a great idea. It doesn't meet what our, brand and our vision and what we're going to. But again, it's not, it's like getting married wherever else. I mean, it's, things come up and, issues happen. It's on how you come through. But again, I think it's asking those right questions. I ask a lot more questions. And I've had a lot of people, it's actually funny because they want you more, that have a ton of money, but then they're coming to the deal what you could do differently and doing. I would never sell them a franchise, ever. Because they're always going to be challenging you. They're always got a better idea. Then I'm always telling them, then become a franchisor and do it yourself. So, sorry. Usually I've bought those guys out. It's not a good idea, too, to be buying out franchises. That's not a good development plan or cash flow plan or budgeting.
Yeah. Good. I don't have much other advice on that, except I always try to remember I'd rather lose sales than lose sleep. And so, just qualifying in the beginning, if somebody is of an equal size to you or bigger, I don't know what stage you're in, but if it's in the very early emerging stage, I'd probably avoid it because they're going to come in and leverage that the best they can. If you can. Yeah, it's easy for me to say that up here.
I should add to that, but there is great people. Again, is if you're really communicating on the fact that you're a part of the pioneer, we'll have you part of the process and, communicating. But really find out how they work. So, I mean, a big thing with big multi-unit, multi-franchisees, again, you always go out and vet them. Are they good to work with? Do they work with other franchisees? Have they been a good franchise partner? Don't be scared if they're a multi-unit go reach out to franchisor and go, how are they a partner to you? If I would have done that in my early stages, I would have saved I would have got a lot more sleep, I guess is the best way of putting it. So make sure to get referrals. Like you do it to the employee, you're going to go and verify and find out. Any franchisee, I mean, even if they're any franchisee in another system, don't be scared. Most franchisors, that if they're smart like I am, I would tell you that they're a good partner or not a good partner. And I think that verifying that's great. And then one thing I would add to is that when you do get big multi-unit franchisees, always go to them with saying, do you have other people like you that would be interested in this concept? So, I mean, going through and asking them that, most big multi-unit guys want the brand to grow. The more that they grow, the more awareness. Again, this is about having the right partner. People that want to lock up a territory and not grow does nothing for them or the brand with the way of building that awareness to where every store opens faster and quicker and profitability faster. I mean, Orange Theory didn't open up with 500 locations required before they opened. I mean, I think it started at 50 or 100, and then, of course, 10 years later, now you have to have 500 members before you even open your store. And then that was something that after you built that awareness and that brand, but that was done by getting to that expansion quick.
So that could be the best thing or the worst thing that happens to you. I mean, just because they have a bigger team, they have ideas, they have all of these thoughts, that wouldn't concern me. That gives you information to go to them and start asking them questions. What's your relationship like with your franchisor? When you have ideas for your franchisor, how does that work? Who do you talk to at your franchisor? How do you build relationship with them? When franchise, and then even broaden it if you don't talk about them specifically. What's the best way that you've seen new ideas come to the franchisor? How's the franchisor handle it? How's the franchisee handle it? So you can start to see how they are with those types of interaction with you.
Let's try to tackle this next one quickly. I don't think there's going to be a lot of strategies, but it's interesting. If you've sold too large of a territory to a franchisee, what are some techniques you can use to get some of the territory back without blowing up the relationship? And know that this person has sales requirements in place or some requirements, but instead of just going the legal route, is there a way to encourage a franchisee to give up territory?
So you don't have to absolutely go the legal route, but you might have that discussion, and say, it's all the way you phrase it. You know, we love what you're doing. It's just you're not meeting your development schedule. We have somebody else who is interested in your market, is going to help you to expand that market penetration. It'll improve the brand recognition in the market. And would you be willing to trade some dollars here for some territory for the benefit of the brand?
It's the elephant in the room. I mean, that they know that, you know that, it's just not being talked about. So just bring it up and put on a commission agreement or put it for sale. That way, when somebody does come and look at that, then they're going to sell it, and they're probably going to be a decent validator because now it's getting sold, and it might be a relief for that franchisee.
Yep, agreed. I've had some questions around first right of refusals. Right? What are your thoughts on first right of refusals around multi-unit?
So there's nothing wrong with the first right if it's very stipulated. So again, the way that we sell is they buy a 3-pack, here's where they'd like it, but there's no term or timeline or wherever it might be. It basically is the fact that you wanted this actual spot right now, it's available, and you take it. We give you the first right in the way of you have the right to move on it right away, or it'll go over here to the next person. So this is a big thing, but I would never have the same thing. It's like where they're locking up that territory. We're just giving them, again, the way we do it is by the franchisee as they come in. So if you're number 1 in that market or number 10, it goes to 1, 2, 3 down the line until somebody takes that particular spot. Because one thing I learned from sports clips as well, talk about sports clips a lot here, but they also, in the same tense, they hunt and look for prime spots to push development. So they go through and they have 10 franchisees in a market. They'll go through and be having their broker network always looking for prime spots. We want to be in these 10 centers. We don't have a location there. Something comes available. They're actually going through and building that, going, hey, we have XYZ location, then going after the franchisee to fill it. So.
Any others? My thoughts on first right of refusals is I hate them. I very much hate them. I just think it's a problem. If somebody is going to lock up territory, they need to have skin in the game. And they bring that skin in the game with cash and a requirement to develop. That is your territory. You can't resell it when somebody else has a first right of refusal. And if somebody else that's qualified comes in, you now have to go leverage that. You might lose your deal because you're going back to the original person. Fastlane's a great example. We've had a lot of great brands come to us and say, we would like to develop, and we agree, but then we look at their agreements and there's first right of refusals in there, and we always require the first right of refusals are cleaned up before we will take on a brand. They're just too much of a headache, especially if you're in the broker groups, because if a broker sends you a lead and you told them that territory was open, and they have a lead that wants to move forward, but now you first have to go offer a first right of refusal that exercises, and the broker loses out on the deal, that's going to create quite a bit of frustration that you're going to have to deal with.
Well, and I should add to that, if we're talking about first rights and they have not bought a license, there is no such thing. I would never give somebody like, oh, I want an option to possibly buy now Dallas next time. No way. If they have not bought a license, when I say that, it's an option for a location that it's not a first right. It's just they're next in line with that particular deal. It's kind of a saying like going through, but no, I would never. If they've not paid me $1 for a location or territory, there is no way ever I would say, I give you first rights to this area because you might give me money. No way.
I'm just like Zink. It's like, no. And then I think he takes it to a whole nother level. Like, this is how you should be thinking about it too. If somebody like Ryan, knowing what he knows, actually goes back and has to clean it up, I mean, I'd be interested to see how you clean it up. That's another discussion, but that's a lot of work. So I'm just like Ryan with first rights.
Good. Another question we've got several times is, and JD, you talked on it just a little, but let's expand. You've sold a multi-unit, right, and they're not meeting their timeline for number 2 or number 3. Without blowing up the relationship, going the legal route, which we all know you can do. What's a strategy a franchisor can use to incent them to move forward?
I should say in 25 years, I'm not very smart, and going through, I've learned from every mistake possible. I've sold full markets because it feels so great to sell 20 locations to somebody. I've had, besides me, only had one full area I've ever sold that's ever met or developed their whole market. One. In over 25 years. Just reiterate that. So, I'm sorry, I got a question. But no, so like I said, I think the biggest thing is locking up territories, even locking up locations. Again, you make your money by opening stores, building royalty revenue, and the biggest thing is how do you develop the best way possible and building relationships. The reason why, again, attorneys absolutely hate it because it's a liability on your books. But my biggest thing is building a culture and a good environment. When you start defaulting everybody because they're not meeting their development schedule, what we do is, and I even built it in the private system, we had a recovery team. They'd go through and do whatever we could to get them profitable, or actually, get them to where they're making money to develop or grow, or we work on a way to help them get out of the system. So we did have a way that we worked with people to get a better operator there. Because again, a lot of times my top operator could go into what they say is the worst, this market, the consumers are horrible, and I can put my top operator in there and it'd be a top performing store. So again, I think having that way you can communicate with, let's try to get them moving in the right direction first, and or we work on a path to get them out.
Yeah, and just adding on to that, I think if you think about those options there, if you can create a resource for resales and actually kind of help to manage those resales, they're great resources. I do a lot of resales for existing franchise brands, and you can then resell to your better franchisees, or you can open it up to the market and find better players who are just more interested in existing units that have existing cash flow rather than having to go through that whole build-out time frame, et cetera.
Back when I was a ZOR, we did something that actually worked pretty well, and I would do again if I ever became a ZOR again. So when we had somebody that was not meeting their development schedule, we went to them and we said, you're beyond your schedule. We have the right to terminate, but we don't want to. We want you to move forward, but we need to know you're serious because we could be selling this territory. So we charged them 10% of the franchise fee that they originally paid, right? So if it was $50,000, they had to put $5,000 down. We extended it for 1 year, and if they opened within that year, we agreed to put that $5,000 towards their first $5,000 in royalties, right? So they have money down now. You look like a friendly franchisor because you've extended the time, and over the long haul, they're not out any money because you just take it off those first $5,000 in royalties. That worked really, really well for us. And those that said no, that was great. We took the territories back and we resold them. We are running out of time. We're down to just 2 minutes, so I apologize. I know there's a lot more questions in there. If the panel has any time after, I'm sure they would answer. Just to close it out, either one of two things, either just a closing comment on multi-unit development or a quick 30 seconds if you were a ZOR, how would you set up multi-unit development?
So set the expectation when you got a single unit going to multi-unit. They had a super successful first unit. Their second unit's probably not going to be as successful because they gave their heart and soul into unit number 1, and they go into unit number 2, and now they are taking great staff away from that. That's probably going to decline a little bit. This one's going to not be as strong as the first one, or the location might not be as good. And so there's just set that expectation with these multi-unit owners from the beginning that it's not easy. You know what it's like. And just set the expectation that it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And that way, when they experience that challenge, they're not disappointed to be like, now I'm here to help you. So I've seen a lot of people get disappointed in multi-unit ownership because they thought unit 2, 3 is going to be as easy as unit 1.
I can add this because, again, same thing, making mistakes and not having the team or the way to be able to help people be successful multi-unit. There is a lot of different books that are out there. There's training programs. So actually, we built a roadmap and or basically ideology on how to be successful with multi-unit growth and brand. So, obviously like how you support people to be profitable in locations, it is a whole different environment on how to properly grow, how do they properly support their own locations. And then, like I said, going from where they're running that first store, now they leave and go to their second store. What does that look like, and how can they make sure that their other store doesn't go down because now they're putting all their heart and soul to the other? So again, there is a lot of, we'll get this because I talked 30 minutes about it, but having a program and a methodology or ideas to be able to help them be successful as a multi-unit as you're trying to help them with a single unit is, I think, very important. There's not a lot of even big systems that offer a multi-unit basically training or roadmap on how to be successful to do it.
Great. Steve?
Just say right brand partners. Make sure you don't sell more than you need to. Make sure that they don't buy more than they can manage. They need to have a sufficient infrastructure and internal systems to support what they're developing. If not, it's not going to work. And you need a team to execute, and they have to be the right team.
One real quick is they're probably not used to managing and owning a business, especially a bigger business. So a lot of franchisors are good at the system and all of these different things, but they're not good at helping people become successful business owners. So there's things like EOS and multiple different things on helping people become really good business owners, so they're not working in the business all the time, so they can start working on the business.
Great. I'll just say, if you do multi-unit development, do it because it's the right thing for the long term of your business, not because you're using it to fund operations. All right, so that's it. We have about 13 minutes until lunch, and how about a round for our panel? Thank you.